Some of you might already know this, but at the end of 2021, I almost became the ID guy. And that's because I was shopping for an EV. The Ioniq 5 had just hit the market, and it was pretty much between that and the ID.4 for me. And in the end, I ended up going with the Ioniq 5, hence why I'm now the Ioniq guy. But for a brief time there, I did almost purchase a Volkswagen ID.4. There were some limitations with it at the time and some things that I wasn't a big fan of. But for 2024, Volkswagen did some major work to this vehicle, mostly on the inside and under the skin. The exterior didn't change all that much. So I reached out to Volkswagen, and here we are today with the 2024 Volkswagen ID.4 Pro S. So in today's video, I'm going to review the refreshed ID.4 and let you guys know if I think this could be a good buy. So if you want to find out more, then stay tuned. So let's start out with talking about what I didn't like about the 2021 ID.4 when this vehicle first went on sale in the United States. So at that time, the infotainment system in the car was a bit of a nightmare. I didn't have to spend much time with this car to know that I did not want to have to deal with that infotainment system. So that was one of the main reasons why I ended up going with the Ioniq 5. The second biggest reason why I didn't pick the ID.4 at the time was its DC fast charging speeds. When this car first went on sale, it was limited to 125 kilowatts, and on paper, when you're comparing that to the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which I bought, it's just no comparison. The Ioniq 5 is 18 minutes, 10 to 80%. You're talking more than double for this vehicle. And as a first-time EV owner, I wanted to go in and have the best experience possible, and for me, DC fast charging speeds were that most important aspect. So this car now charges at upwards of 175 kilowatts, and that means you can go from 10 to 80% in just under 30 minutes. I think Volkswagen quotes 28 minutes, which honestly isn't that bad, especially if you're not DC fast charging and road tripping all that much. The next big improvement for this vehicle is going to be the software in the infotainment system. Volkswagen seems to have really listened to the complaints, and they've completely overhauled it, and we'll get to that later in this video, but it is so much better. Now, of course, vehicle styling is completely subjective. I personally like the styling of the ID.4. That's why I considered it in the first place. I just think it's a relatively handsome vehicle. I think it's aging quite well. We're in the 4th model year of the car, and I still think it looks pretty good. And I think it's a striking look with the LED light bar that goes across the front of the grille. I think the silhouette looks pretty good. It does have a relatively high roof line, and the back end is more squared off than the Ioniq 5. I like the fact that it has more practicality here in the trunk area. I like the fact that it has the blacked out roof rails, at least here on the Pro S. I really like the short front overhang. It makes parking this thing a breeze. I parallel parked this thing in busy Boston today. My friend was really impressed how easy this was to park and how maneuverable it was. You'll see some really cool lighting here. You have a red lit Volkswagen logo. The ID.4 badging is in white. It's kind of just an interesting color combination here. I do like it. So looking at the front end of the ID.4, I do really like the LED accent lighting, especially the illuminated Volkswagen logo in the front. You do have automatic windshield wipers here, auto high beams. This car does have a full safety suite, so you have radar adaptive cruise control. You've got front parking sensors, back parking sensors, everything you could want in a modern car. The charge port for the ID.4 is located on the passenger side of the car, and it's not electrically actuated or anything. You just push on it and it pops open. Simple. Got a nice light in here. And then to remove the cover for the DC fast charging pins, it has a nice little fold out arm, and then you can just quickly pull that out, put it right back in, shut that. Just very nicely done here. You've got some 255/45 R20 wheels on the ID.4 here. Very simple design. Black inserts with the polished metal looking fins. Should be pretty aerodynamic. In terms of brakes, in the back you do have drum brakes. Because you're not really using your friction brakes all that much, you don't really need to have brake pads all the way around. They're going to require more maintenance in the end. The drums should work just fine and last a long time as well. The ID.4 has a very easy step-in height. It is a small crossover SUV, so getting in and out is just what you expect with a car of this size. Now, when I was on the verge of buying an ID.4, one of the biggest reasons for me was seat comfort. And I'm happy to see that the seats haven't changed very much since 2021. For somebody of my size, they're a little more comfortable than the seats in the Ioniq 5 that I own. The bottoms are a little flatter. The side bolsters are not as tight on my torso. So all around, for someone my size, I just find it to be more comfortable. This does have the massage seats, which were also a big sell for me back in 2021. Now here's my second complaint. This does have ventilated seats. When they are on level 3, there's 3 levels, I can barely tell that they're doing anything. They are not the best ventilated seats I have ever felt. So if that's what you're after, this might not be the car for you. But it does have 3-level heated seats. It does also have a 3-level heated steering wheel activated by a button right on it. Another complaint for me is going to be just the sound that the door makes when you shut it. It sounds very hollow. It doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. It also kind of like rings out after it is fully shut. Not my favorite. We also don't have double laminated glass on the side windows of the ID.4, which is unfortunate, and that leads to more road, tire, and wind noise entering the cabin. I do wish that they would add that, especially here on the top trim. This is a $50,000+ EV, and I don't think that the sound levels in here at highway speeds kind of make you feel like you are in a vehicle of that price. Here under the trunk, it is very heavy. There's no gas struts. You do have a prop rod, which is fine because you're not going to be going in here very much. There's no front trunk. You can just tell how compact this front end is. Everything is packaged pretty tightly, which gives you more trunk space, which is always appreciated. You can see you have some functional openings here in the front bumper to direct air around the wheels and tires to kind of create a sort of curtain of air that gives you better range overall. You do not have power folding side mirrors. They are manual only. Parking in a city, it would be really nice to see these automated. Now, the Volkswagen key fob here is really nice. It's very hefty. It's simple. You've got lock, unlock, trunk, and then a panic button. You do also have a physical key stored in the bottom section here. But what's nice about the ID.4 is when you have the key in your pocket, you walk up to it. All you got to do is just pull on this. It unlocks, lets you in. And then when you shut the door and walk away, it will automatically lock them as well. You can see the lights just flashed, meaning it was just locked. So I do really like this door handle design. It's simple and it works. You have a touchpad located on the back, which allows you to unlock the door. There's no moving parts here. There's nothing to break. There's no awkward grabbing of handles like with Tesla. All the door handles are lit all the way around the car, which is also really nice. So I did go ahead and take the Volkswagen ID.4 Pro S rear-wheel drive on my regular 48-mile range test that I do with every car that I get. And it was a cooler day. It was morning, 58 degrees out. So you can see I did it in 39 minutes as compared to low 40s with some other vehicles. Thus, my average speed was a little bit higher, 74 miles per hour. And we averaged 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour. If you multiply that by the battery capacity of 82, you can see at 74 miles per hour, we have a total highway range of 262 miles, which is honestly not that bad. I was expecting a little bit lower with the ID.4. But this is the rear-wheel drive, so it is going to be a little bit more efficient. It is rated for the high 200s in mixed driving, and I think that is certainly doable. So the interior of the ID.4 I actually find fairly nice. The upper door panels here are a soft touch material. They're a little bit cushioned. The door panels here are nicely stitched. There's still a bit much of gloss black that I'm not a big fan of. It's here on the armrests, it's here on the center console, it's even under the lid for the center console. So I'm not crazy about that. Another thing I really don't like is the fact that you only have 2 window switches that you have to switch back and forth with the rear with this little touch sensitive button here. I just found it to be cumbersome. You can see there's some nice ambient lighting on the door that continues across the dashboard here. You do have some HVAC controls over here where you typically find only the light controls. So you have auto lights, and that shows up here on the screen here in the driver display. And it also gives you feedback right there. You can turn on front fog lights. And then you have front max defrost as well as rear defrost. It's just kind of an odd placement for it, but you don't really use those a ton, I guess. I think it just would have been nice to have it over here in the screen. You've got a tilt and telescoping steering wheel, and something you're going to notice is that this screen here for the driver moves with the steering wheel, so you're never going to have a poor view of this screen like in the Ioniq 5 where it's just fixed in place. It's always moving, and I really like that. It's small, but it gives you all the information that you really truly need. So if you are using the built-in navigation system, you can have your directions pulled up here. You can also have your trip computer view. You can also see the view of the driver assistance system if you're using the adaptive cruise control on the highway. You can see it gives you a battery percentage as well as estimated remaining range. The steering wheel feels pretty nice. It's on the thinner side, and the haptic buttons on the steering wheel are pretty responsive. I remember when I first test drove the ID.4, I didn't really like them all that much, but having just done 4 hours in the car, I have found them to be perfectly adequate for what they are. This Pro S has auto wipers. One major touch point in this interior that I really am not a fan of is the gear shifter here. It just feels incredibly cheap. It's just a cheap black plastic. I don't think it looks great. I prefer the old version that was actually mounted on the side of the screen here. It was a gloss black. It just looked better in my opinion. This just looks chintzy. The interior is on the more Spartan side. Most of your controls are done through the big touch screen. The only real button you have here in the center console is your hazard button. You do have some air vents down here. They are a little bit low for my preference, but you can point them up and they do get the air going in that direction. This is where one of the biggest differences is going to be is with the center console that was redesigned for the US market. If you might recall, the first edition had the almost minivan-like armrests that were attached to the side of the seats. Now you have a more traditional center console with a lifting lid here for this storage cubby. Down here you have a Qi wireless charging pad, which is a pretty cool design. It has this clasp that when you stick your phone in, it keeps it tight up against the wireless charging pad, so you don't have to worry about it flying around. You've got a couple USB-C ports here that are lit, and then you've got a couple decent-sized cup holders. They do not fit large, like 40-ounce water bottles, unfortunately. The dashboard is a nice soft touch material. Down in the glove box, it's a drop-down style. It's on the smaller side, I would say. This Pro S model has the automatic dimming rear view mirror. There's no buttons or home link anything on it. Up top, you do have some LED lights, the control for the sunshade. I do wish this center console had some softer material on it because in my driving position, my leg is resting on it and it does create a bit of a pressure point after a while. Same thing goes with the door panel here. My kneecap is hitting this hard plastic gloss black piece here. Also a little bit uncomfortable. I do also wish that this cutout here for elbows went a little bit further back because I have the seat almost all the way back, and if I rest my arm here, it's just impacting on my upper arm. So I do wish that was a little bit deeper there. When I do put the window down, also, I wish the pillar was a little bit further back, but I'm just a big guy and these are just the problems that big people deal with. In the back seat of the ID.4, hard plastic up top. You do have some softer material down lower on the armrest, and then that gloss black panel with the window up and down switch. You can see here with my seat adjusted for me at 6'2", legroom isn't terrific, but the caveat here is that the seat does move back to allow the driver to get out. So this is a little bit further back than it otherwise would be, but I have the passenger seat adjusted for a more normal height individual, and moving over to that seat, you can see I've got pretty good knee room, foot room, also pretty decent. I can get my toes a pretty decent amount under that seat, which is a big deal for me. Thigh support is surprisingly good. Got a couple USB-C ports, some air vents, and then up top here, you've got a pocket that you could put a phone in. Some big door pockets here for water bottles or whatever junk you want to put in there. There are smaller seat back pockets down low here You could stuff some stuff in there. You do have a fold down armrest with a laughably tiny cup holder in the center. I don't know what you could possibly fit in there. And even these other two are on the smaller side as well. The seats back here are actually pretty comfortable. I haven't been back here for any major amount of time, but I don't mind them. And then you do have some LED lighting up top. Visibility in the ID.4 I have found to be pretty good. You do have these cornering windows in the back that kind of help with seeing through your blind spot. The back window is pretty narrow, but as long as you have these headrests in their lowest position, you really can see out just fine. Here in the trunk, you can see it opens really quick, which I really am a fan of. You do have a privacy cover here. Something that's really nice, dual LED lights here in the trunk, so you can really see things pretty well at night. You do have a false floor here, and there's a decent amount of storage space underneath it. But beyond that, you do also have a small little tub here down on the bottom, which is nice because you don't have a front trunk here on the ID.4. So this is a nice spot to store your level 2 charger or level 1 charger. And honestly, if you wanted more storage space back here, just pop this out, put it to the side, and you have a lot of space in this trunk. You do also have a ski pass-through right here, which is a very nice touch. So the idea with the ID.4 is that you get in, put your foot on the brake, and the interior comes to life. I've found this to be a little annoying. Sometimes I like it, other times it really annoys me. You do have a physical button here for start-stop, which you can use if you want to override it. So right now I'm still sitting in the seat, and if I want to power it off, I just press that button, it says goodbye. Or conversely, I can go ahead and turn it back on. I just really don't find a start-stop button to be much of a problem, and I would rather be in control. If I want to just get out of the car real quick and get into the back seat and do something, it'll leave the car on, it'll leave the AC on. You don't have to worry about it. You just know what it's going to do. Here, the second you open the door and you get out of the seat, it powers off. Let's talk about the updated infotainment system here for the ID.4. So I had pretty limited experience with the 2021 first edition that I drove. I could tell immediately that that system was not laid out well, and it was super laggy, and just all around really pushed me towards the Ioniq 5. But I've spent about 4 hours in this car over the last day, and I gotta say, they have really paid a lot of attention to people's complaints, and they made a much better system here. So the first thing you're gonna notice here is the screen. It's very sharp, it's bright, it looks fantastic. So the layout here on the home screen is you have a map, you have some quick buttons to get the charging settings, and then some other settings here that you can go ahead and adjust. You can put in whatever you want here. This car does have a built-in assistant named Ida, I guess. I haven't really tried out any of her capabilities, but I'm sure it's like any other car's built-in assistant features. Down on the bottom, you have a fixed row of climate control buttons, so you can quickly turn on your ventilated seats. You can quickly turn on your heated seats. And something I really like is if you do need to control the fan speed because you don't have fixed buttons down here, you can click on that button, and it just gives you a nice little overlay. You can quickly make your change, and then it just disappears. You do have the hard buttons down here for controlling temperature though, and they are backlit now, so you can see them when it's dark out. That was a big complaint for the previous iteration of the ID.4. The volume slider is pretty responsive, it works well. I don't really have any complaints after using it for a day here. So if you pull down from the top, you have some quick settings to adjust brightness. You can go from light mode to dark mode if you want, and you can jump to some other settings here. You can add more shortcuts if you want. It's very customizable, and you can see it is super responsive. The old system was not like this. Any ID.4 owner can truly attest to that. Up top here, you have some more shortcuts. So you can get into your drive mode, you can change that really quick. There's a custom drive mode here where you can set all sorts of different functions to that custom drive mode. Very nice. You can quickly get to your maps here, settings, and here under the car icon, you have some more shortcuts for vehicle functions. You can add all sorts of them here. You can put the wipers in service position. I already have one for auto hold. I really like having auto hold in a car. Here we have the trip computer. Something that I really like that the Hyundai and Kia products are missing is your average speed. I think that is something that really helps you understand how speed affects your efficiency. So if we go to the long-term stats here, you can see over the last 3,000 miles, the average speed has been 31 miles per hour with an average efficiency of 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour. And then down here, you can see how much energy the car is currently using. So it's using 900 watts per hour that you're just sitting here with the screens on with the air conditioning going. So theoretically, if this car were fully charged and you were just sitting in it with the air conditioning going, you could run it for almost 80 plus hours, which is pretty wild. And then over here under this button, you have all the functionality of the car that you can go in and edit. You can change your ambient light settings. You've got dual color in here, so you can have the upper color be, in my case, orange, and then down below you can have like a nice shade of blue. In the charging screen here, you have pretty standard stuff. You can adjust your AC level 2 charging from 50 to 100%. I guess this also does double duty for the DC charging too, so you will have to adjust that if you want different charging levels for what type you're using. But something that I think all EVs should have, the Kia and Hyundai products that I drive do not have this, but if you go to optimization, current quick charge potential, 137 kilowatts. So this is saying if I pulled into a DC fast charger right now at 35% state of charge, I would be able to get 137 kilowatts. It takes all the guesswork out of it. You don't have to roll in knowing what you're gonna get. If the car's telling you that it's gonna give you this and you're not getting that, then you are limited by the station and you can unplug and move to a different charger. So great to see that. I hope other manufacturers implement that. I'm sure many do, but Hyundai and Kia really need to start including that. It's gonna cause so much less confusion. Now on the topic of route planning, if we go into navigation and say, I want to go to Minneapolis, we can go ahead and click on that. It's going to calculate the route, and you can see it's planned all these charging stops. So you can see it calculated that route, and it calculated it pretty quickly. If I pull this screen out, I can see the first 1, 2, 3, 4 charging stops. It doesn't show anything beyond that because it's probably going to calculate better when you get further out and closer to the destination. But you can see if I click on this first one, it says I will arrive there in an hour and 20 minutes. It's 74 miles away. I'll get there with 12% state of charge. I'm going to charge to 72%, and it will take 33 minutes to charge from 12 to 72%, which honestly isn't that bad. Most of these charging stops you can see are 33 minutes, 31, 22, 21 minutes. So this one I'm showing up with 8% and charging to 58%. You can filter your charging stations. You can see here that I have it selecting Electrify America/Canada stations. You can have it select only stations that are available at that given time, which is probably a good thing. And you can also limit it by over 50 kilowatts or over 100 kilowatts or all, depending on what your preference is. Volkswagen's navigation system here is just really nicely done compared to Hyundai and Kia. It's more responsive. I think it looks better. It just works more like you expect Google Maps to. And that's a good thing. You can pinch to zoom, you can adjust the angle with a 2-finger swipe, and then obviously you can just drag around and look at the map. So yeah, all around, this is a huge upgrade over the previous system. Unfortunately for the lower end trims of the ID.4, they're going to retain the old system for now. They really do need to get this new system across the lineup for ID.4 though. All right, so taking the car onto my favorite twisty road here. We'll see how it handles the corners. I did put it in sport mode. Feels pretty good. Yeah. I like the way it feels. You know, the level regen you get in B isn't less than I would really necessarily want. It's just the fact that it doesn't come to a complete stop. That's my biggest problem with it. Steering feels pretty good in sport mode. Again, this is a family car. This is not going to be something you're taking out to rip around a racetrack on the weekends. But you can definitely have a little bit of fun with it if you want to. Here on the highway, we'll set VW's highway assist feature, which will semi-autonomously control the car via adaptive cruise control as well as lane centering. Set it to 75. I have noticed that this system works very well. It really doesn't ping pong back and forth in the lane like with some other competing systems. I found it to be just a very natural feeling system. It does a good job of getting back up to your set speed if the car in front of you does move out of the way. As long as you just have one hand lightly on it, feels great. So road noise at highway speeds, high 60s, 67 maybe. 68, so definitely a little worse than some of its competition. But you heard there that the adaptive cruise control system was yelling at me to take control of the steering wheel. That's because my hands were not giving it any feedback by turning it left or right. I don't believe it's a capacitive steering wheel where it just senses your skin contact. For me, the road noise, the tire noise, the wind noise is just the most annoying part about driving this car at highway speeds. So coming to a complete stop, you really do have to use the brake pedal quite a lot. If this car had one pedal driving, it would feel so much better. I really am not a fan of the turn signal indicator sound. This car has plenty of power though. For the 2024 model year, the ID.4 does have a different updated rear motor with bigger output, and it's got plenty of power. It can easily get out of its own way. I think Volkswagen was really going for the gas car owner here, and I think that's probably why they didn't give it full one pedal driving. I think that's really detrimental to the driving experience. Anybody who drives an EV can probably tell you that driving an iPedal is pretty enjoyable. I know it's not for everybody, it can be herky-jerky. We'll see over time though how Volkswagen improves the system. Let's see if putting it into a different driving mode changes the behavior at all. No, not really. The accelerator pedal definitely feels completely different. So I'm sure you all are wondering right now, is the Ioniq guy going to recommend the Volkswagen ID.4? And honestly, there's no reason not to recommend this car. Volkswagen has addressed most of the biggest complaints with the ID.4, and I think they've successfully implemented these changes to fix it. There's still plenty of things I don't actually like about the ID.4, but they're things that I could live with. And I will flat out say, had this been the ID.4 that were available 3 years ago when I was shopping for an EV, my decision would have been much more difficult to make because there's many things I like about this car. There's many things I like about the Ioniq 5. They're both excellent cars. I really don't think you can go wrong with either of them. I will say if you are a city dweller and you do a lot of city driving and parallel parking, this is going to be much more easy to live with in the city because of its tight turning circle. It's just going to be much more maneuverable. If you do a lot of DC fast charging though, the Ioniq 5 is an excellent choice. That's going to do 10 to 80% in 18 minutes versus this taking 30. Both cars are very well spec'd. They both have a ton of technology in them. In terms of navigation and route planning, the ID.4 definitely has the Ioniq 5 in that department, in my opinion. Both these cars start at about $40,000. The ID.4 was made in America at this time and is going to qualify for the full $7,500 tax credit. But if you do want to lease, you can collect the $7,500 tax credit on either of these cars right now. So there you have it. That's my review of the updated 2024 Volkswagen ID.4. If you like today's video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Consider subscribing. I don't just cover Hyundai and Kia anymore. I am starting to delve into some other brands as well, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you did like what you saw today. If you do need accessories for your Hyundai, Kia, or Genesis EV, check out my website, ioniqguy.com. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.